Welcome to episode 251 of the Caring Generation podcast. I'm your host, Pamela D. Wilson. This week, the topic is aging parent health issues, layered problems, and family caregiver solutions. We'll talk about how to identify health conditions early and stop the domino effect of worsening health and physical declines in aging parents and in yourself. Being a family caregiver presents an opportunity to learn from the experiences of parents and elders so that caregivers can repeat the good stuff and eliminate the bad stuff. All of the information I share today is for family caregivers and the people they care for. This information goes in both directions. So stay with me while I share some information that is obvious and other information that you may have known about, but you didn't make the connection. To give you an outline, I'll share 3 pieces of information. A story about how the combination of layering, incontinence, urinary tract infections, and falls can cause a cascade of health declines in an elderly parent that can be difficult to stop. Number 2, I'll give 2 preventative actions everyone can take to reduce the likelihood of an injury or fracture if you happen to trip or fall. And number 3, I'll give an example of how being proactive today can prevent this spiral of possible health declines that eventually do require other people's time when someone needs a caregiver. Instead of being able to go out and enjoy your life to the fullest, whether you're still working or you are retired, which is really what most people dream of. So in case you're wondering how I can talk about all this, it's through personal and professional work experience. 25 years of elder care and caregiving experience. You can learn more about me, Pamela D. Wilson, on my website, PamelaDWilson.com. So let's get on to the story of layered health conditions and how this works, how they can turn into more physical problems or injuries that grow into more problems that can be difficult to manage. We'll start with 2, incontinence of the bladder or incontinence of the bowel. Anybody with these conditions can find themselves rushing to the bathroom or rushing to find a bathroom. For older adults, what usually happens is tripping over a rug or bumping into a piece of furniture on the way to the bathroom and then landing on the floor. Sometimes the fall isn't serious. Other times, those falls result in a broken wrist, arm, a fractured pelvis, or a fractured hip. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Now let's talk about a layered problem. So we have the incontinence, but then add to that dehydration and the effects of dehydration. Because people who experience urinary incontinence may not want to drink a lot of water because guess what? Then they will have to use the bathroom. My clients would tell me this all the time. This is an example, though, of how one condition or concern causes other problems. The first, dehydration. Now let's talk about the next one. Being dehydrated means that your body doesn't flush out bacteria and medications from your body. And this can negatively affect the kidneys and the bladder and can lead to a kidney or bladder infection. How do you know if you're not drinking enough? Well, if your urine is bright yellow and not clear, you're probably dehydrated. Separately, though, if you take a lot of medications or vitamins and supplements, your urine can also be yellow because you're peeing out the vitamins that you don't need. But that means that unless you are fluid restriction or restricted for some reason, health problem, it's important to drink as much water as possible to flush the medications and everything out of your kidneys so that when you pee, your urine is clear. I purposely have a jug of water that I fill up every morning, and by the end of the day, my goal is that jug of water is empty, and I want to drink at least 2 more glasses of water. Because honestly, if I didn't do this, if I didn't have a tracking mechanism, I would be dehydrated probably all the time because I don't think to drink. It's not easy. And yes, of course, I use the bathroom frequently, but it's better than being dehydrated and the alternative of having health problems that I don't need or want. So let's add the next layer. We've got the kidney and bladder infections. The next layer is delirium. Being dehydrated can lead to headaches, feeling dizzy, constipation, low blood pressure, a rapid heartbeat, electrolyte imbalances, brain fog, and confusion, which in elderly people can mean delirium. Now, I live in Colorado at a high elevation, and so that adds another layer of complexity. People who fly to Colorado from other lower altitudes frequently experience altitude sickness, headache, nausea, vomiting, feeling weak, dizzy, or lightheaded. Although different from altitude sickness, delirium is a very serious condition that does usually require hospitalization for the elderly. Delirium can also make dementia or Alzheimer's worse. What is it? It's a sudden change in brain function. An elderly parent may be more mentally confused. They don't make sense when they talk, not know the day or the time. And working backwards, delirium can be caused by an infection, like a urinary tract infection, a bladder or kidney infection, or even pneumonia. So let's look at all these layers. We first talked about incontinence, and then we talked about people who don't like to drink a lot of water because they are incontinent. Well, that just turns into dehydration. And then dehydration because you're not flushing fluids and medications and bacteria out of your body. Well, that can turn into a urinary tract infection or a bladder or a kidney infection. Then that can lead to delirium. So now let's add one more layer. Doctors who prescribe medications that can add complications or side effects. For my clients who were incontinent, doctors frequently prescribed medications. The problem is that those medications have side effects like dizziness, blurred vision, more likelihood of falling, and mental confusion. So when I was a guardian and a medical power of attorney for my clients, I took a lot of my clients who were prescribed these medications for an overactive bladder off of those medications because the risks and the side effects were horrible. My clients would fall. For those who had dementia, the medication made their memory worse and their daily functioning worse. So, regardless of whether your parent is incontinent and has all of these layers of health problems, or whether they have another health condition like high blood pressure or high blood sugar, the lesson is that health conditions can, and they do, layer or build upon another. And unless you're watching every aspect of a health condition very closely, the bad effects or the bad side effects of medication can be difficult to notice before some health conditions or an event or a fall or something makes you realize, well, gosh, now that I look back, that was a problem. So think of monitoring your health or a parent's health like pieces of a puzzle. You're putting them together, you're taking them apart. Now, if at all possible, make one change at a time, like adding a medication to see if it has a positive or a negative side effect. I'll give you an example. I had a client who weighed 158 pounds. This was a man, so he was not very big. He was on so many medications that he couldn't function. He couldn't talk. His memory was worse, and nobody was asking any questions. He didn't drink a lot of water. He wasn't very physically active, so there was no way that his body was flushing out all the medications that he was prescribed. Instead, they were building up in his system. And over a period of 3 months, he became more progressively mentally confused. Nobody could figure out why. And he started falling. And I finally told the doctors, I said, look, this is crazy. He weighs 158 pounds. Why on earth is he on all of these medications? And the reason was, well, a medication would cause a side effect, and they'd add another medication to take care of that side effect. And they just kept adding and adding and adding. And he couldn't obviously speak up for himself. There was nobody to speak up for himself. So as these medications were reduced one at a time, he became more like his old self. He was talkative and conversational, and he wasn't falling anymore. So while there are a lot of good things about prescription medications, they can also cause a lot of problems, especially in the elderly whose bodies can't process out these medications. So it's important to be very attentive to what you or an elderly parent take for medications and learn about the side effects and see if those might be causing problems. Know that you can never ask too many questions of doctors and other healthcare professionals. You can also speak to the pharmacist at the pharmacy. And a lot of times it helps if you do your own research. And I don't mean like just, asking a question on the internet. Actually search for research articles. Those tend to be more reliable than just, typing in a question on the internet and you just never know what you're going to get. So now let's go on to part 2 of our discussion. Before I do that, please do me a favor. After you listen to the show, add a positive comment about the Caring Generation on your podcast app, whether it's Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you listen. Please add a positive comment. Those comments help this show rank higher so that it can reach more people worldwide and help more people worldwide. So I'm asking for your help to do that, please. So second, in our discussion, I want to talk about 2 preventative measures anybody can take to stay physically and emotionally healthy. And these 2 are one of the more obvious 2, but I want to link them to research so that you have a why, because a lot of times if there's no why, there's no motivation to do something that might be good for us, right? Research confirms that more than 50% of people over age 50 have 4 to 5 chronic health conditions. So what's a chronic health condition? Things like heart disease, breathing problems like COPD or asthma, high blood sugar, migraine headaches, arthritis, anxiety, depression. They're conditions that are not immediately life-threatening, but gosh, they sure are bothersome. So learning about health and health conditions and how to prevent them can be very helpful if you're willing to do what it takes. So on the prevention front, learn what causes conditions. And so I'm going to give you a story, an example of this. Okay, so for elderly people who experience falls. Earlier we talked about incontinence and rushing to the bathroom and all of that. Well, the contributor to fractures that result from falls is osteoporosis. It's weak bones. Bones that if you look on a scan, they look like Swiss cheese. There's holes in them, right? So on this end, the number one preventative measure or information that can help you learn your bone density is a DEXA or a bone density scan. Now, there's a lot of opinions on when to start getting these. I think most recommendations I've seen are around age 50. Some I've seen around age 65. In my opinion, the earlier the better, so that you can just establish a track record and say, hey, you know what? I'm 50. I don't have osteoporosis. That's a good thing. I must be doing something right. Because the goal is to make sure that you have strong bones and you're not heading toward osteoporosis, which again, that condition where bones get weak, they more easily fracture, and they're harder to heal because you don't have strong bones. So if you're curious, you can voluntarily go get a DEXA scan tomorrow without a doctor's order. You just need to have a DEXA scan location in your town or accessible to your town. Now, obviously, if you do this outside of the healthcare system, there's a cost, probably a couple $100. Or you can talk to your doctor and say, hey, can we order this scan and you have it done through your health insurance? I had a DEXA scan done a few months ago at a individual DEXA Fit location, and I got some really cool pictures and an app, okay, and data that seemed more valuable to me than any of the paper reports that I ever saw for my older clients when they got a bone density scan. This report showed a picture of my entire body and my bone density, my body fat, my muscle percentages, and it actually gave me my body's um, age, different from chronological age. So let's say that a body may be 65, but maybe your physical body age, because you're super active, is 55 or it's 50. And so this kind of data allows anybody having a scan to decide, well, what do I do with the data? Is it good? Do I do nothing? Or do I work to improve my bone density? And how do I do that? Do I work to improve my body fat percentage, meaning decrease it? Am I going to work on my muscle strength because the scan's showing that my back muscles are weak? So this is especially critical if you want to enjoy your life when you're older, if you don't want to have health problems, right? Also especially critical if you are older and you have poor balance, or you've lost muscle strength, or you're physically weak. A lot of people I know have parents that if you look at them, they look so frail, like, oh my gosh, if they fell, they would break like all the bones in their body. So if you're looking for more information on this topic, there will be articles and other information linked to the podcast transcript page for this show. To find it, you go to PamelaDWilson.com, click on the word media in the navigation scroll bar, then the Caring Generation, and then scroll down the page to find this episode 251. So on that page, there is a link to the Spreaker app where you can listen to the podcast again. You can read the content. There is also a video on that page, along with links to other articles on my website on similar topics. So let's go to the next preventative measure. And this is for people who are over age 65 who have Medicare, but also for younger people. So following up on DEXA and bone density scans, many Medicare supplement and Medicare Advantage plans offer discounts to fitness centers through a couple of programs that you may have heard of. One is called Silver Sneakers, and the other one is called Active and Fit. So your parents may not even know about these if they're not someone who normally has worked out. And if you're still working, check your health insurance because a lot of the major health insurance companies offer an Active and Fit discount. So here's the thing. You have a DEXA scan. It doesn't come back so well. Well, participating in cardiovascular exercise and weight-bearing exercises can help increase your overall health, your vitality. It can increase your muscle mass and your balance, beneficial at any age to prevent falls, which can have serious consequences. And younger people fall too. I've had friends who have fallen off ladders in their house. They were painting a wall or something. They fell, they broke something. So it's not just older people who have falls because of poor balance. It's anybody can fall. You trip on a curb or a sidewalk or something. But for older adults, the consequences are more serious. So earlier I mentioned broken body parts, hip, arm, wrist, pelvis. The consequences for older adults, for parents, of a broken hip, well, you go to the hospital. You have surgery. Doctor decides what type of surgery you get. You get a screw, you get a partial hip replacement, you get a full hip replacement. Then normally the process would be to go to a nursing home for physical therapy so that you can regain your walking speed and everything that you used to do before. But here's the catch. So if a person refuses or they can't participate at 100% and commit to physical therapy to recover from a hip fracture, then they're not going to be physically better after surgery than they were before. Absolutely, they may have a new piece of equipment in their body, they may have a new hip, but they still may be less active. So, why go through all that, right? The problem here is that older adults who fall often limit their activity, their physical activity, because they're afraid of falling again. And so, what happens is this cascading spiral of more negative health events. So, parent has hip surgery, they don't do the physical therapy, they sit in a chair all day. Then they lose more muscle mass. They become physically weaker. Their balance gets worse. And let's just add another layer to this. So, a parent sits all day in a wheelchair. They can get pressure sores, which can turn into very serious life threatening conditions. I have had clients, elderly clients, who became wheelchair bound for one reason or another. And maybe they were malnutrition, there was something else going on. They acquired pressure sores that ended their life. Now, for these people also, because they don't have much physical activity, they sit in a wheelchair all day, their heart health declines. And really, any type of physical exertion for people in a wheelchair can become exhausting. So then let's add another layer. Parent had hip surgery, went to rehab, didn't recover. Now they're in a wheelchair. They can't do a lot of things they used to do. Well, add to that depression, add to that anxiety, add to that isolation. So, what you see here is how one health condition can layer onto another and another and another. And sometimes we just don't know to pay attention to what's going on with the body physically and with the mind until this is so far down the road that it's really difficult to backtrack and correct this. Physical weakness and frailty and falls are contributing factors to why grandparents, why elderly parents need care from their adult children or other family members. Physical weakness, frailty, falls, they're all preventable. They're all preventable if people know the what of what can happen and if people then make the choice to take action. And of course it takes work, but what it really takes is a why. Why do I want to prevent falls and fractures and getting sick when I'm old? You got to have some kind of motivation, right? Well, what do you want to do when you're retired? Do you want to be able to spend time with your grandkids or travel or do all those things that you've always wanted to do? Or is your choice to be that person who has a lot of health problems and you're physically limited and you can't really do all the things that you had hoped? Is your desire to keep living in your home and be independent? Or are you a person who's saying, you know what, I'm just going to go live in assisted living and I'm going to live in a nursing home and that'll be okay with me? Believe it or not, these are choices that we are all going to face. And the decisions that we are making today about our health and our fitness and our well-being will have an impact on our future lives. And sometimes we may not see that impact for 10 or 20 or 30 years. But do you really want to get to that point and think, oh my gosh, why didn't somebody tell me this 20 or 30 years ago? Or, gosh, I listened to that podcast. I ignored everything she said. I didn't believe her. So you can take the information that you gain on today's show and on the other 250 shows, and you can do something with it, or you can ignore it. You can share it in your family. You can pass it along to a friend. It's helpful information that can benefit people that isn't really talked about as far as the layered health conditions and the consequences and what can happen. So now I'm going to talk about the third thing, which guaranteed positively is the most difficult in the preventative aspect of life. So the energy that we have relates to what we put in our bodies. Do you just get out of bed in the morning and you're raring to go? Or are you the person who's like, you're pushing that alarm clock for like another 30 minutes or hour snooze time, right? So energy and the health conditions that we have come from our level of fitness, physical activity, layered onto our diet and what we eat. So even being healthy has layers to it. So my one suggestion here is, if you don't already, start seriously reading food labels and understanding the numbers on the label and what they mean. Salt, sugar, fat, cholesterol content, and then learn about the maximum recommended number of grams per day for these things. So let me shock you with one number that actually shocked me. It's something called added sugar. So for women, there's a recommendation out there, no more than 25 grams of added sugar a day. For men, it's 36 grams. So to put this into perspective about how hard this is to track, one 16-ounce can of the average soft drink, I don't want to give names, has 50 grams of added sugar, almost 3 times the recommended amount if you're a woman. It's actually quite shocking when you start to read labels and look at what you're putting into your body and then comparing how you feel. So let's talk about cholesterol for a minute. High cholesterol can be partially hereditary, but it's also caused a lot by our diet and what we eat, eating too many foods high in cholesterol and fat. So while hamburgers may be your favorite food and you love French fries, if you eat that, 3-4 times a week, that may not be too good for you. But the only way you're going to know is if you go to the doctor and you get a blood test to see what your cholesterol is. Or if you go get a DEXA scan and you learn about your body fat. And if you do find out that you have high cholesterol, are you at risk of high blood pressure or a heart attack or a stroke? Again, we're layering consequences here. So where on earth does cholesterol come from? Super frustrating, right? It's in foods that come from animals. So eggs, hamburgers, steaks, ribs, chicken, pork, fish. Foods high in saturated fat can increase cholesterol and present the risk of heart disease. Now, also foods like butter and cream and cheese and ice cream, all the things that really take good, contribute to this. So now you're thinking, well, Pamela, what the heck am I going to eat if I can't eat any of that? Well, here's a thought. Start learning about your health diagnosis. Go get a checkup, get some blood work, get a DEXA scan, see if you got anything to worry about. Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. See what you have to work with and pick one. So maybe you decide to work on lowering your cholesterol because you don't want to take a cholesterol medication, which is called a statin. They have a lot of bad side effects. Or maybe you decide that you are going to reduce complex carbohydrates like chips and potatoes and rice because you want to lower your blood sugar. Or you're going to choose to focus on exercise and diet because you want to reduce your body fat and your weight. Now, obviously, any one of these choices has information that you're going to need to research and learn, and one layer upon the next. But pick one and start there. And be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself, and make it a habit. Make it a habit for at least 30 or 60 days and then keep doing it. You might surprise yourself at how much better you feel. So I encourage you, your spouse, your elderly parent, listen to this podcast. Find one action that you can take away here. If you're a younger adult, model healthy behaviors for your children and your parent. Schedule some time in your calendar for some kind of daily physical activity, even if it's only a 10-minute walk or some meditation. Your body and your mind will love you for it. They will thank you for it. And continue being interested in learning more about health and well-being however you choose to do that, because everyone deserves a happy and healthy and active life from birth to the last day that you are on this earth. I thank you all so much for being here with me for episode 251 of the Caring Generation podcast. Title is called Aging Parent Health Issues, Layered Problems, and Family Caregiver Solutions. To find the podcast transcript, go to PamelaDWilson.com, click on the Media tab, then the Caring Generation, and scroll down to episode 251. I thank you all so much for being here. Please, before you run off on your day, do me a huge, huge favor. Post a positive comment about the show on your podcast app, or even just say thank you for the show. It's awesome before you go on with your day. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert. God bless you all. Sleep well tonight and have a fabulous day tomorrow and a happy and healthy week. Enjoy each day until we are here together again.